Hello and welcome to the tutorial for our April Grow and Grace sign tassel kit. So I'm super excited to show you what we're going to do with this month's kit. So a few of the things that I have grabbed. So in the kit, you're going to have your 3 blocks that are already pre-drilled here. I'm also using the little butterfly embroidery piece that came in the kit. We'll need our jute tassel. You've got your 4 beads here. And then you're also going to need your beater tool that came in the kit. And the napkin that I'm going to be using is the actual Grow and Grace one. So we will need both napkins for the design that I'm going to do. You'll also want your Mod Podge. I've also got, I'm going to turn on my iron. I'll be using the iron on method for this particular one because I think it'll be the easiest. I've also got my Waverly chalk paint. This is in Plaster. If you've seen me before, you know this is my favorite color. I've got brushes, water, a couple of other things I have for the tassel. I've got a fork and I've got a comb. Scissors. I do have, this is optional, but I do have the heat gun just to speed up the paint drying a little bit. I've got my hot glue gun on. You are also going to want a separate jar of clean water. So I have my water for my paintbrushes that I always have, and then I have a separate water for the tassel process. You'll need just a bowl or something with water that we can put those in, and I'll show you how to do that. And I think that's it. We can go ahead and get started. So the first thing that we're going to want to actually do is start with our tassels because those are going to need to soak a little bit. Ooh, I also forgot I do have some parchment paper for the iron. Definitely want that for the iron-on method. But the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get our tassels started here so that they can soak while we're doing everything else. So this is the string that we'll be using to make 2 tassels as well as what we'll be using to string the whole sign together. And we're just going to try and get this trying to get the knot off of it. If we can just slide it over one end. We actually, there we go. If we just loosen that one part, there we go. We've got it undone here. Okay, so we're going to use all 3 of our blocks together for this first part before we go and paint them. So we're just going to use the blocks as our template for the tassel. So just put all 3 blocks together and we're just going to wrap these around. So the one that the example that I have, I did 9 times. So I'm just going to count to wrap it around 9 times. The more jute you use, the thicker the tassel is going to be. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, so we're going to wrap that around the 9 times, and then I'm going to go ahead and snip it. I'm going to make sure that I snip the right thing here. And from here, we can slide these off. Now you can put a little string underneath it if you want to do it that way, but we're just going to slide it off. So basically, this is what I have. And then from here, I need to move this. My overhead camera is just not quite catching there. From here, we're going to keep your finger in here because this is where we're going to tie right here. We'll put these aside. We'll need another little section of the string. So I've got about 6 inches here, I think, approximately. Just kidding, I've got 8 inches. So from here, we're going to want to, and then let me move these cameras so it's a little bit easier. I think that's the problem there. There we go. I don't know where I went, but it's fine. So from here, we're going to want to tie this part to secure it. So you've got about 1 inch above the top there. So we're going to tie it pretty tight. Come through and tie it again. Now our one little strand is going the right direction. Your other little strand is not going to be going the right direction. So we're going to take our beater and we're going to work it up through the knot. Just anywhere in the middle there. Now I did tie this pretty tight, so it's not wanting to come all the way through. There we go. We're gonna pull our string through here so it catches it, and then we'll just pull it back through the knot. And now both of our strings are going down. So we have a very simple, it tied very simple there. Now, if you want it a little more fancy, what you can do is, well, I'll do two examples. So I'll do this one, and then the next one, I'm going to show you how to do it a little more fancy. From this one here, we can go ahead and we can cut our ends. And then we'll put that aside for now. Let me show you the second way to do it. That is going to have a little bit fancier part here. So again, this time let's go ahead and put our piece of string underneath here so that we already have it. And let's go ahead and wrap our 9 times around. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then come all the way back around. And then from here, and then we can slide it off. It'll all be together. We'll make another knot here. So here's what you have. Then we're going to take our extra piece of string here. Give yourself a good amount. So you can see, like, I have a pretty good chunk here. This is like 17 inches. So I'm going to leave the tail down. So the tail is at the bottom here. And then I'm going to start wrapping it around. So you can see how now it has like a nice little band. And then the last time you wrap it around, you're going to pull it through here. Keep it tight on the bottom. So that's kind of one knot. And then I'm going to go around and do that again so that I have a double knot. Again, I'm just keeping all of these strands in a row and then pulling them through. Make it nice and tight. And then now you have like this nice band. And then you also have the part that we'll need on the top. Okay? So from here, I'm going to clip my ends. And I'm not going to worry about them being all equal right now because we're going to have to cut them a few times. The next thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get your water and take these and completely submerge them in the water. And the reason that we do this is because the jute or the string has memory in it. So if we can get it wet all the way to the core, then we can reshape it the way that, let me go back to my split screen here. Then we can reshape it to the shape that we want. So we're going to leave that in there. You're going to leave it in there about 15-20 minutes. So that's why we started with the tassels. So we'll get those in there. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and paint our blocks. So I'm just going to demonstrate one of them here. I have my other two already painted. So we'll just hit this one with paint. Again, just coming in with the Waverly Plaster. And we're just doing one nice coat. Now, if your block has some rough edges or a little bit of shredding, you may want to hit it with a sander if you want it more clean. So if there's just any of the edging that you don't like, just hit it with your little sander before you paint it. And we're just going to get one nice coat all the way around. So you do want to make sure that any of the edging, that's stuck in my brush there, as we're doing the edge, come back to the front and make sure you don't have some paint globbed up in there. Sometimes that happens when we're painting the edges. You'll see it has this little line right here. So we'll want to come back and hit that so that it is nice and flat. And I am going to hit it with the heat gun. There we go. Got some stuff in my paint there. Make sure when you're doing the sides that have the holes drilled in them, we want to ensure that we're not clogging that hole with paint. I mean, to get a little bit of it paint in there is fine, but we need that hole open so that we're able to thread everything through it. So don't get too heavy on the paint on the insides. Again, you can see I've got a little bit of paint in there, that's fine, but we just don't want to make sure we don't want to close that hole. All right, I'm going to hit it with the gun again. And then we're going to do the last side here. My iron's mad that it's got on. Okay, so from here, I'm going to just take and clean off my spot here. And I do have all three painted now. So you want to make sure that when you are laying them out to do the decoupage or the rub-on transfers, that the process is the same. Make sure that you have the holes towards each other, because when we string them, we need all of that. This is going to be the top and the bottom of each of them. So we want to make sure that we have the right side of each one before we move on to adding our designs. Now, if you have the rub-on transfer club, from here, once your paint is dry, you're going to go ahead and just apply the rub-on transfers in whichever way that you would like. Peeling off the top, putting it face up, rubbing it on, peeling it off. I don't have the transfers in-house today when I'm recording this, so we're just going to demonstrate with the decoupage method. So for that, we're going to need the napkins. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is, since we're using the iron-on method, we're going to go ahead and cover our blocks with a thin coat of Mod Podge, which we are then going to allow to dry before we move to the next step. Now, you all know, if you've watched me, I'm a little heavy-handed with the Mod Podge, so I'm just going to start with Mod Podge on this one, and then I can move any of the excess over to the next one. You do want to make sure that you get all the way to the edges. So that it will stick, because it has to, the whole surface has to be covered for this to work properly. All right, so we've got block number 1 done, and then we'll just go through here and use our excess. I had to resist the urge to put Mod Podge on that next one because you know I'm going to have too much because I always have too much. So you can just use your other block for your excess. Again, just making sure we've got all of the sides done. Whole block covered, and then we'll just come and get the last one. If you have like good overhead lighting, or you could take a flashlight or your cell phone light, you can kind of see where you're missing if you look at it at an angle. There we go. We've got a nice good coat. So we're going to hit this with the heat gun to speed up the drying process. And from there, we're going to go ahead and start with the one that we started with first. We're going to put these other two up here just to keep drying a little bit. They're, for the most part, they're dry. And now we're going to come in with our napkins. So I'm going to be using the flower edging on both ends, and then I'm going to be using the main design in the front. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and get my larger scissors that I thought I didn't need, and I'm going to cut out the whole design on this first one. Now, if you're new to us and new to our napkins, we have all of our napkins printed here in the United States. So that's why we only have the design printed on the front. We are trying to find other manufacturers to work with at this point, but for right now, that's what we're able to do for our custom designs. So we're going to need this whole design here, because I'm going to use this. I'm actually going to use this for the middle one, but it doesn't matter which one you start with. So I'll probably do this first, this one first. And then for the other two sides, I'm going to be using the extra border pieces that I have here. So let's go ahead and do this one first. You could cut it down further if you wanted. I'm just going to use the whole thing to make it easier. But the first thing that we're going to want to do is separate the plies so that we're only getting the very top napkin. Now with this one, I did get one ply, but I got it on the wrong side. I need this one to only be the one ply. So we can kind of get that out of the way, and I can try again. Sometimes it's easier if you just tear like a little corner like that, and then you can get in there and get the two different plies. So sometimes that's what I do. I know I've gotten a bunch of other tips of how to do it. For me, for whatever reason, none of those tips work for me. So I do the tear method because that's what works. That's what I can get to work. All right, so now you can see how the design really pops on there. So the great part of doing the iron-on method, I'm going to use my grid here. The great part of the iron-on method is it allows you to like drag and move this around without, because if the Mod Podge was wet, once we place it on there, like there's no moving it around. So this allows us to have some grace as we're placing the design. So I can push it all the way up here, or I can have it so that it's showing a little bit of the border on the top and the bottom. I think I am going to push it all the way up. So that'll make it pretty easy to get center, because I can just make sure that these flowers are not showing. And that's how I know it's centered that way. And then going this way, I'm just going to drag it over until it looks centered. And I feel like that's pretty good. So once you have it where you want it, you're going to go ahead and take your parchment. Excuse me. I'm still getting a little bit over the cold. The cough seems to happen when I'm talking. So I'm going to take the parchment paper over there. We're going to come in with our iron. I had to get myself enough cord here. And then we're just going to hit this with the iron. So I'm going to just make sure that I get the whole thing and then, you know, kind of work it around the edges a little bit so that I know those are stuck. And then we can take this off. This will be hot when you first take it off. So when I first come off here, so basically what I want to see is I want to make sure that all the way around it's stuck, and it is, so we're good. So I'm going to go ahead and just let that one cool off, and we can get the next one here. So again, this is actually going to be my middle block of the design, but it doesn't matter what order you do them in. Now from here, I'm going to use a little bit of a different technique to get the design. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut out the main one again, because we are going to be using the top and the bottom. Dixie. So you could cut it, excuse me, straight across, or you can do the decoupage method, which is us going around these. I'm going to be using the decoupage method for this one. So I still have all 3 plies here. So I'm just going to come here and I'm just dipping my little paintbrush in water, and I'm just going to tear around it. So it's going to give me kind of a blendy edge once we put it on. So it's not like a defined line that will be cut all the way across. And I'm just following the flow of the flowers. So you just work around these. And I only need to do it to the top, because the bottom I'm going to actually line up with the actual block. So again, just using my fingernails to tear. And there we go. So we have one design here that I'm going to be using along the bottom here. And then we're going to do the same thing with the other design here. So that we will get 2 of these. And just keep moving along. There we go. And then I would save this for another project. Okay, now this particular block that I'm seeing, I've got like a little, I don't know what it is, like wonky here where I kind of blobbed the Mod Podge. So I'm going to hide that under the design. So to do that, I make sure the holes are on the side. I'm just going to flip it around this way. So if you have any blemishes or things that you don't like about the particular block, that's one way you can cover it. So I don't want my flower pattern to exactly match on each side. So you could center it if you didn't want to. I'm going to work this one from this side, and then the other one I'm going to do from this side. So this will be my left-hand side block. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line it up this way, but we're not ready yet because we still need to separate our layers. So we're going to go through here, and we're going to separate so that we just have that top layer of flowers. We're going to place it, and I am just pretty much going to line up the design with the bottom of the napkin. I have it overlapping just a teeny bit so that I can make sure that I can file away that overlap, so that's not a problem. And then we're just going to come in with our iron, and we're going to hit it just this bottom part here. So did we need to Mod Podge the whole thing? Probably not, but it does seal it. So now you can see, now at the light, you can see the top is a little bit shiny and the bottom is not. So if you don't like, excuse me, if you don't like that look, don't take your Mod Podge all the way up. Just take your Mod Podge to the bottom. My iron is like still mad that I'm using it. There we go. Okay, so we're going to put that again up here, and then we're going to go ahead and do our last one. So that first one, I'm going to keep them in order up here so I don't thread them the wrong way. We're going to separate our plies, and then I'm going to push this one. Again, make sure that our holes are on the right and left hand side. And I'm going to push this design over to the left. So it's basically, I'm doing this so that it's different flowers, so that they both don't have the exact same flower pattern. Right there. And actually, I'm noticing this block has some stuff I don't like either, so I'll just flip it around so the top is better. What happened was when I was painting it, the block fell over on its face, and there was some debris on my mat, and of course the paint picked it right up. So I've just got some chunks in it. We don't like that. So we'll just cover this. And again, we'll just make sure that we got all the edges. I don't want to touch that part because it's hot. And we did. So from here, we can get our sander. Just our little finger sander. You can use a fingernail file if you don't have the sander, a sanding block, a piece of sanding paper. It doesn't matter. And you're just going to make sure you're only dragging down. We're not going to go back and forth because we don't want to rip the design back up. So we're just going to drag down as we're sanding, and we're going to go all the way around. Now this first section, or first time we do this, we're just getting the napkin off. Now if you want to do some distressing and some antiquing, then after you get the napkin off, you can be a little bit more aggressive and getting some of that wood to show through the paint. So there's my first block. Now I'm going to come through with the one that we did second here, because I know that one's nice and cool. And we're doing the same thing. We're just taking off the edge. All right, so we have our our 3 blocks here. So if we put them together, this is kind of the picture that we have here for our 3 blocks. Now, what we're going to want to do is we're going to go back to our tassels. Now the tassels, I'm going to move this iron out of the way. The tassels we currently have sitting in our water. So what you're going to want to do, and again, the tassels you might need to do way before you start this project, because not only do they need to soak, but they also need to hang and dry. So I already have mine, another set over here that has been hanging. But basically what you're going to want to do, take them out of the water, squeeze all of the water out so that they dry quicker. And then for this particular part, I just took a fork to straighten them out because I want them to dry like in the hanging down, not wrinkled up state. So take both of them out. Like I said, put the water, get all the water out of them. You're going to want to tie a knot at the end, and then we're going to hang these to dry. So I have 2 over here that have been hanging to dry. Now it's going to take probably a few hours or so to get them as dry as you want them. These ones have only been hanging for like maybe 30 minutes. But I'm going to go through and show you. When they're still a little bit damp, you don't want them like super damp, but a little bit damp. Then you're going to come through with your comb. You can leave your tassel like this. If you like this look, you can leave it like that. If not, what you're going to want to do is you're going to take a comb, and we're actually going to go through and comb these out. So you start at the bottom, and as you comb them, there is some, like the little fuzz is going to come off. So what I did is I combed them out a bunch when they were still wet. And then I combed them about halfway through. And then I let them dry some more. And then I came through and I'll show you what they look like with that. So get them as fuzzy as you want the ends. Again, don't worry about hair cutting. Then go ahead and let it dry some more. When they get completely dry, it's going to look like this. Okay. So this is one that has been completely dry. It's been hanging out for like days. So from here, what I did is I went through, and again, I'm just taking my comb and I'm combing them out. So it really just depends on what kind of look you want and how loose you want the tassels. And this is what I was telling you. As you can see, you're going to get some like knotting and stuff out of it. It's fine. You just throw that stuff away. So I just combed out as much as I want for however I want it to look. Flip it over, get the back. So really this is just like personal preference. Some people are going to want them all straight. Some people might like them just how they were before we started combing them, and that's fine too. So basically what you're going to have is you kind of want them to kind of look the same, but I have this one that's like completely combed out for the most part. To me, it looks like kind of like a horsetail. I like it. So I'm just going to get this one to that level, or at least similar, so that it looks closer to it. Pretty decent. All right, so the next thing that we're going to want to do is we need to make sure that our tassels, one, are the same size. So this particular one is a little bit shorter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it so it's straight. And then I'm going to use that one, because it's the shorter one, as my guide for cutting the other one. I'm going to do this over my trash can. We can pretend like we're cutting bangs here. We don't want to make a mess. So I'm just going to trim it over. So now I have two that are the same size. Okay, the next part we're going to do is we're going to start stringing our tassels. This part we're going to need the beater for, and you're going to need the rest of your jute. So it's best if we can start with one end. And to do this first, I'm going to go ahead and clip off the knot off of one of mine, because the first thing that I want to do is I do want to bead in between this and the block. So I want to bead here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take my beater. We're going to stick the beater through the bead. We're going to put the jute, the two little tassels here, and we're going to go ahead and put our bead through. If you have enough jute, I would probably go ahead and I'm going to do a knot here just to hold this bead down so that it doesn't go anywhere. It's thick enough that it can go over the knot if it wants, but I'm just trying to kind of hold it in place a little bit. Then from here, I'm going to go ahead and I am going to tie these two in a knot to hold them together. And I'm going to snip these short. And now I have basically my bead on a string. Now I'm going to take a longer than I think I need amount of string here. I still have all this, but I'm going to take all of this, and now we're going to start beading our blocks. So you're going to stick your beater through the block. Go ahead and put your string through the hole, and then you're going to pull it through. So we're going to do these one at a time. Now this first one, I do need to get this knot in here, so I'm just going to very gently pull it through. I don't want to pull it so tight that I pop the knot off. We don't want to do that. Then the next thing you're going to do is you can either use the beader or not. For this particular one, the holes in the beads are pretty large, so we don't really need to use it for that. But once we get to the block, the beader makes it easier. And this is our easy beader. We do have extras of these on the store if you're like, I know someone who needs that. All right, so again, we're just going to keep pulling it through. We'll go through our last block. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and now that we have the last block on our little sign thing, we're going to go ahead and clip our tassel. And we're going to get our last bead on our tassel here. And for this one, we can go ahead, we've got the extra that we need, so we can go ahead and clip that off. And what we're going to do is we're going to tie a knot as close as we can here. Make sure it's a double knot. We're going to clip our ends. Go ahead and get the fork. And we're just going to work that knot back in the hole because we're basically just kind of hiding it. All right, there we go. So now you've got your full tassel bead sign. Let me see if I can get a whole screen for you here. For this particular kit, again, you can do the transfers with this. You can do the napkins. We showed decoupage, but the transfers are just as easy once they're painted to go ahead and put on whichever way you want. Add your embellishments, do the front and the back. It really is that easy. So if you end up making this project, definitely share it in one of the public groups or in the members group. And then also anytime you share on social media, make sure that you tag @ChristianCraftPaper so that we can feature your design with our crafting community. And until next time, happy crafting!